I never remember what I put on my
Managing
list.
expectations.
All right. Hi, everybody. It's Catie Harris, CEO and owner of Nursepreneurs, and I'm here with Jill.
Jill Weberding,
You
CEO
want
and owner of Nurse Assure. One of these days we'll get
I
it
always
right.
assume you're going to introduce yourself. Like those newscasters, like, hi, I'm Catie.
Yeah, we'll get it right by like the 10th time in, right?
I'm going to have it's going to be one of those days with my internet. Yeah. All right. So today's topic, we are talking about the roller coaster syndrome. And Jill, why don't you a rundown of what the roller coaster syndrome is?
Sure. I think that most people feel like this. It's really about managing expectations and being attached to your not just your long-term, but your short-term outcomes. And so with any business or, whether you're doing consulting or you've got a product or coaching, or even if you're creating a course, there's naturally ebbs and flows in it. And so you start out with like all this excitement and you're excited and you're running to get to a certain point, and then you'll hit like a brick wall. And whether that's that you've got a block and it's just struggle to get through it. So there's just naturally these ups and downs in any business. So that's kind of what we talk about with roller coaster syndrome, and how do you navigate that as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, no, I've definitely been on a roller coaster. I've been on loop-de-loop, the super duper looper. That's what I've been on my roller coaster journey.
It can feel like that for
Yeah, and
sure.
it's, I mean, because the business itself, and I think this is an important thing to understand. And I didn't understand going into business because I thought I'm going to go into business and just make money and everything's going to be great and cherries and roses and all that kind of stuff. But the business has become more personal journey, and it's personal development. So when you're on a personal development journey, you're absolutely going to have some crazy roller coaster. And I think, speaking from a medical background, like having been a nurse for 20 years, and I worked neurocritical care. So I've got some ability. So, I can just take neurosurgeons screaming at me, people dying, high stress environments, all that kind of stuff, and just be completely, this is a normal day. This is
Right.
just one of those things. And that kind of filters out into when you go out and start your business, things aren't that way. A lot of repressed emotions and feelings and thoughts and that, and then not just from but from childhood as well, that you have to work through in order to get to the other side. And maybe that to the other side of the roller coaster syndrome that you were talking about, but I think it plays a big part.
Yeah, it really helps you navigate and understand that this is not like a straight line. And it's not a line that once you start here, you just go up, 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 success, and you just stay there like perpetually. You're just constantly going up. That's not how it works with any business. And so any kind of nursing business is the same, whether that's again a course or coaching or consulting, whatever you're doing. There's just naturally those in there, and you have to be able to navigate those and anticipate them. And it's really about managing emotions. And so you were 100% spot on when you talk about it's really a personal thing. It's a personal development issue, like so many things in business.
Yeah, so I mean, you just have to be willing to win those obstacles. And, I would say too that it's more just very steep changes. So you might be going up, 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 and then it's kind of like you do this V, and then you start going down, and your emotions can just be all over the place with, oh my God, I'm a failure, and just the combination of the two. How do you kind of stay even keel with this? How do you manage these like highs and lows that you?
Yeah, so I think one of it is the most important thing is to try to detach from the outcome, which is much easier said than done. But it's not so much detaching from it in my mind. It's about reframing what that outcome is, or reframing what success is. Because if I know that I am in this, and when you go into business, we've talked about this before, Catie, it's not an overnight thing. It's a long-term commitment. So when I came into my business, I knew I was in it for the long haul. So the short dips, whether how short they felt at the time, I knew that it didn't change what I was doing. I'm still moving forward. So it's kind of about getting in your head that you're all in if you're going for this, right? You can't really keep one foot in the ring and one foot out and expect to be able to navigate this roller coaster syndrome, because it will tear you apart. Because every time you hit a low, your inner critic is going to kick in, your fear of failure is going to kick in, your imposter syndrome, all those inner game issues that we've talked about, they all kick in, and they will absolutely derail you if you feel like you have to have that success immediately, and that you don't, recognize that you're in it for the long term. So it's all just work in progress. It's all learning. So, whether the dip is,
Yeah,
whatever you have, it's what are you learning from that, from that dip that's going to perpetuate, your success later on.
I think it's something that's easier to see in other people. So, and we've seen this in our Nursepreneur Pitch Fest contestants, the nurses who you've worked with for weeks now, to create a pitch basically from an idea, and to go from an idea to hard. It's very difficult. But we've seen them on their own roller coaster rides, and for us, it's kind of like, no, it is just straight up. All you have to do is go straight up,
Yeah.
and for them,
Doesn't
it
feel
is
that
that
way.
roller coaster ride. So no, so what's the difference there? Why can we see how like clear, and it's
Well,
hard for them?
yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to see what's beyond right in front of you when you're in the thick of the trenches, right? Like when you are down in the when you are in the dip, it's hard to see beyond that. Especially if you're starting out and it's the first time you're kind of experiencing these things. And that's why the personal development is so critical to keeping you moving forward, because a lot of people just give up. I mean, whether it's the first dip, second dip, maybe the third dip, but if they can't get a handle on their inner game and their mindset and how to reframe, what success is, that this is a long-term journey, they quit. And so, that's why everybody says they want to be their own boss, because, oh, I get to make my own schedule and I get to, do whatever I want. But at the end of the day, they don't persist. And it's usually because of inner game types of issues. So yeah, we certainly have seen this with all of our nurses who are in Pitch Fest. I mean, they've just done an incredible job. I cannot say enough about how exciting it is to see someone come with that idea and really bring it all the way to fruition. But it does feel like this all the way for them.
Yeah, and that's what even one of our contestants last night was talking about her bio. It's like, again, like me, she'd wake up one day and be like, "Oh my God, I'm so amazing! I'm going to be the leader of this blah blah blah," and then, it might even be an hour later,
Yes.
defeated, and like you can't go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's exhausting.
Yeah, inner critic will like sneak
So
in like on the coattails of your confidence and be like, I've got this. I own it. You can finish a call. You could finish, have a little micro win with maybe you got your website copy up or something came together for you and you feel like, yes, I'm finally making progress. And then just this one little tiny voice like of doubt sneaks in and it can just totally derail you if you don't recognize that immediately for what it is, and then again reframe and say, this is a long-term, this is a long-term thing. I'm in it, for the long haul. And so even if I do have dips, which I will when I have them, I know that that's something that I'm going to learn from and get better.
yeah, no, I love that, Jill. I think that's really helpful, and I think it's helpful to talk about these things just so that, because it's easy to look at somebody and say, oh well, they clearly have it all together and their road is straight up, and you don't know what's going on in that person. Even people that are really really successful by whatever criteria you're judging them by, they have the same, they have the bad days, they have the days where they feel like a or an imposter. I'm sure even Tony Robbins feels that way, and maybe that's somebody that you look at and say probably doesn't have any bad days, and I'm willing to bet he's got lots of bad days. And
Yeah.
I'm sure he's somebody too that maybe once in a while is like, gee, I don't know if I should be doing this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I've come to learn. And, some of that's come through, mentoring that I've done as well. And it's like whatever is most personal is most general. So we're all human beings. And it doesn't matter if you're in Indiana or Pennsylvania or Canada or wherever, like we're all, wired to a degree the same way, meaning we all have these inner game issues and you may experiencing them at different times. They may last a little bit longer depending on what your experience has been and what your beliefs are growing up, but everybody struggles with it. And so we see that, we saw that again in our with the nurses in our group. And that's why it's so powerful to have a community. When you get into masterminds, when you get into these courses and they have these communities, because you get surrounded with people who really can reassure you. Whoever is brave enough to be the first one to say, okay, this is where I'm at. I was feeling really good. And then, slammo, I'm in the wall of self-doubt. And, it's 5 more people will hop on there and be like, oh, thank you for saying that. Like, I thought it was just me. And it's not, it's something that we all go through, but it is something you've got to work through.
Yeah, no, it's something that I don't like to be the person, and that's kind of one of my problems with support groups and stuff is like I'm afraid to, raise my hand and say something because I'm not sure if like I'm the or I'm the only one struggling with that issue. But so I do appreciate when I can jump onto their thread and be like, yeah, me too,
Yeah.
me too, that's me. But it does take a lot of confidence to say, I'm human and here it is. Here's my issue today.
Yeah. And it's reassure again, that's the power of the group because even if you're not the one who's willing to be the first person to say that, once you do, or whoever does, when other people join in, like it's just reassuring for everybody involved to be like, okay, this is not detrimental. This is not the end of my course. This is not the end of my business. It doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that I should give up or quit or not pursue what I'm going after. It's just, part of the process. It really is. And, I think when we get that third party validation, it makes us feel a whole lot better to realize that, okay, it's really not just me. And if it's not just me, then how could it be the exact same thing for everybody? And so most of those are limiting beliefs that we're telling ourselves. And it's just something that we need to reframe the story.
Yeah. And I think you can take from your own nursing experience as well, like what it was like come off orientation and, you've learned the material, but you forgot something that's like really vital and you should know it and you don't know it and you're afraid to ask. But, it's one of those things where, you in order to move on, you gotta figure out the answer. You gotta figure out the obstacle or the challenge that's in your way. And it's the same in business. I mean, you're gonna have aha moments and then you're gonna have moments of just dread and despair. And yeah, and again, Jill, like going back to the Nursepreneur Pitch Fest contestants, I am really excited tonight we're hearing their pitches are 2-minute pitches. And I know that they've certainly been on a roller coaster ride, but some of them have had pitches that we thought were done. And then they sent us an email and they're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
What are your kind of thoughts on that as well?
I was thrilled actually to see that because to me that means like it's part of the process because it took a lot of courage for our contestants and I think people can sympathize with that if they have never done a pitch or recorded themselves, whether it's YouTube videos or whatever it is. If they've never done a pitch before, the fear of the camera is real for so many people. And it's very personal because you're putting yourself out there. And so naturally, the fear of judgment comes in there. And so sometimes it's like you're aiming for perfection, which we've talked about perfection before. And so there's a point where you just say, oh God, I just have to get it. I'm just done. Like it just is what it is. And so they submitted that and it's like, great, you did it. Like sometimes you do just have to wash your hands and say, okay, this is the best version I can do right now. And I will pick it up on the next iteration. But I loved that we had some that came back, and after being in that, lull, they sat and worked through it and said, you know what, I want to try it again. I think I can do better. I think I want to tweak this. I want to, change this a little bit. So I love seeing those, second submissions come through, because it showed to me that, again, it's just personal growth. They're like, okay, I'm not just going to give up before the deadline, or say I'm washing my hands of this. I want to take another run at it. And that's only going to make them better.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of this too is like kind of pushing them to make an offer, like any offer, to start, because it's a starting point. And the first offer I started with certainly isn't the offer that I have today, but it put me on a stage, right? Like it
Yep.
gave me just that experience of like, okay, well, here's the feedback I'm getting. So what do I do with this information? And then number two and number three and number 5,032. It's like it's just going to constantly evolve, but it has to start somewhere.
Yes, we talked about that early on. I talked about that in the group early on of, what you start with is not going to be what you end with, but you got to start somewhere. You have to get started. And so sometimes people get, paralyzed in those beginning stages of, it's not perfect. It doesn't feel right. I don't think this is it. I want to figure all these moving pieces out. And a lot of times you literally just have to get started, and you just gather information as you go. And so as you get feedback, and we talked about that a lot in the group about how to research your audience and have those conversations and get feedback from them, because that itself is going to morph your offer, or it should, if you are paying attention and you're really wanting to serve that specific audience. What your idea is, and some of them said this last night too, what their idea was coming in, they found out after they did some more research in progress, once they got started, that it did change significantly, and that's where they ended up was definitely not where they started.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Then we're both really really proud, like proud mamas,
I know.
of the students, the contestants. Yeah. Really excited for them.
Yeah, I'm always like, I will be your biggest
So
cheerleader, but I'm also going to be the person who gives you a loving kick in the pants, who tells you, "Come on, like look what you look at all this experience you have. Like nobody knows that. Do you realize like you really have something here? And there's this huge gap. You've done the research and discovered there's this huge gap in the market, and these people need a solution. So please step into that, and and be the person who's going to try to help them. So that's really what it is. It's that initial stepping up, and then framing your mindset to know that it's not just going to be even keel all the way through. There are going to be ups and downs. And I think when you anticipate that, it makes it easier to navigate. If you just don't think it's going to be all, like you said, cherries and roses and, utopia land, if you anticipate that those ups and downs are going to come and it's a natural part of the process, it's much easier to take when you hit one, I think, for the most part.
yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. All right, Jill. So, what are kind of some of our key lessons for today? What do we need to take away from this?
So managing expectations and the whole roller coaster syndrome, I think that the big takeaways is to realize that it's normal. It's a process. It's just part of business. And so you need to come into your business, whatever that is, coaching, consulting, home health agency, or, what a course, whatever it is, you need to come into it anticipating that there are going to be ups and downs, and they're a part of everyone's business. It's part of everyone's journey. And then also you have to kind of get your mind set that, are you committed to this or not for the long haul, for the long term. You can't really, your success and your progress is going to be significantly limited as long as you continue to try to keep one foot in, two rings over here. So you really need to come all in and then recognize this is going to be a long-term kind of goal and a long-term process. And then those dips don't mean anything in the scheme of things. 5 years from now, you're not going to remember or care about that on, Wednesday, you like had an attack of self-doubt. It's not going to matter in the scheme of things. What's going to matter is that you continue to move forward because you knew in your mind and in your heart that you had people to serve, and no matter what, hills you were going to have to, obstacles you were going to have to overcome, you were on a mission to do that. So it's really about that personal development and anticipation of knowing those. And then when you get in one, recognizing that there is going to be an upturn.
That sounds awesome. And I totally agree with it. So, yeah, no, I think that because
Like,
yeah, it has been, like I said, the whole journey has been a roller coaster, but it's been a fun roller coaster, and I like doing it. I like going on roller coasters; they're fun. But you definitely want to manage the expectations, which is easier said than done for sure. And just, I think it's like one of those things where you let the feelings wash over you, but not take over you.
yes,
You can
great.
have self-doubt, you can have, these feelings of like, I'm not good. Yeah, I mean, they're going to come, and just say, okay, take a moment, let them come through, and then let's get back to work because they're not helping.
Yeah, dismiss. If it's not serving you, dismiss it. Move on. Keep your head down and know that there's a reason why you're doing this. There's a reason why you have that burning desire in your heart to help, whoever it is that you're trying to serve. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, Jill. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Catie. We'll see you next week on InnerGame.